All right, Shalom, Israel, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all honor and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. All right, it's in the name of the Most High God, Yahweh, and His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shah, that we do all these classes. All right, so welcome back to another edition of Law School. All right, Lord willing, this will be edifying through the Spirit. All right, and we can get some out of it today. All right, let me make sure that my screen is showing. Let me make sure. Quick. Fine. All praise. All right, so we're gonna be going over Genesis chapter 30 today. Genesis 31, Salah. Genesis chapter 31. I'll change that in the thumbnail. Like it. Matter of fact, let me take the headphones. Oh, I was using them for something else. So all praises. Genesis chapter 31, and we're gonna start at verse 1. So last chapter we had Jacob had the desire to provide for his family, to kind of try to get up from out of Laban's uh get from under his thumb, so to speak, right? He worked for his two wives that he now has, and he has a whole family that he want to support, right? So we're gonna get into it. We're gonna jump right into it. So this is Genesis chapter 31, starting at verse 1. It says, and he heard the words of Laban's son, that he here is Jacob, right? It says that he heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob have taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's have he gotten all this glory, right? So they using the words, he took it away, right? But he didn't take it away, he earned it, right? We remember what happened in the story. Laban agreed to the agreement that Jacob presented to him, and it just worked out in Jacob's favor, right? Let's keep going. So his son's getting into it now, right? Let's keep going. Verse 2, it says, and Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before, right? And you got to pay attention to people's faces, man. They got a saying in the world called reading the room. You know what I'm saying? You can learn a lot about a person, even if they don't talk. You can learn a lot about a person just by looking at their facial expressions, right? Real quick, let's go to the book. Let me open up another sword real quick. Let's go to the book of Sirach, chapter 37 and verse 17. You can learn a lot about a person just by paying attention to their facial expressions, right? Sirach chapter 37 and verse 17. All right, it says the countenance is a sign of changing of the heart, right? So a countenance is your facial expression. It says it's a sign of changing of the heart, which is your mind. You can look at somebody's face and tell that they went from happy to sad or scared or excited. You can look at their face and it'll let you know all of that, right? So let's go back to Genesis. It says, and Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. Now, why wasn't his face toward him as before? His sons looking at him crazy. They like, look, they said Jacob have taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's hath he gotten all his glory. That's why Laban's face done changed. Right? Let's go back to Sirach, chapter 14. Right? Sirach chapter 14. And we're gonna see ultimately it was the Lord that took the riches away from Laban, right? Sirach chapter 14 and verse 3. It says, riches are not comely for a niggard. Right? A niggard is a greedy person. Right? Let's put that on the screen real quick. Somebody might think I'm lying. What is a niggard? All right. A niggard is an excessively stingy, miserly, and ungenerous person. right? As an adjective or in related to a form of niggardly. It means being reluctant to give, spend, or share resources, right? So the Bible say when you're like this, that you shouldn't have riches. Riches ain't good for a person that's that way. Well, that's the way Laban was. He was what you would call a nigger. He changed Jacob wages 10 times to try to get over on him. It says that riches are not commonly for a nigger, and what should an envious man do with money? An envious man don't need money, right? Because he not gonna give alms. He not gonna look out for the poor. He only gonna be concerned with himself, right? So let's go back to Genesis. So verse 2 again, it says, and Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And the Lord said unto Jacob, return unto the land of thy fathers and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. So the Most High told Jacob, hey, get up out of there. It's time to go, right? It says, verse 4, and Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flock, and said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before, but the God of my father have been with me. And ye know that with all my power I have served your father. So Jacob is talking to his wives. He like, look, I done did, my God done told me it's time to go, right? My God done told me it's time for us to leave. I done did everything I could for your dad, but he ain't right. He a nigga, right? Verse 7, it saying, your father have deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. But that's like you got a job. You get the job and they like, we're gonna pay you $17 an hour. Or say you going and working for a dude, right? A guy you know. He say, I'm gonna give you $100 a day. Then y'all go to work. He like, well, I'm gonna give you 75. Then he like, well, it ain't what I thought it was. I'm gonna give you 50. That's what kind of what was happening to Jacob over the years, though. He said he changed my wages 10 times. It say, but God suffered him not to hurt me, meaning what? Even though he was doing that to me, I still had everything that I needed, right? If he said, thus, the speckle shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckle. And if he said, thus, the ring straight shall be thy hire, then bear all the cattle ring straight. Whatever Laban tried to change it to, it worked out in Jake's favor, right? Ain't that what it say in Genesis? Let's get that. Let's go to not Genesis, Romans. Let's go to Romans 8, one of my favorite scriptures, right? Romans 8 and 24, right? No matter how many times Laban tried to do him wrong, it worked out for him, right? Romans 8 and 28, Salaki. It says, and we know that all things work for the good to them that love God. It says to them who are called according to his purpose, right? So no matter what you do, if that person is called by the Most High, it says all things work together for the good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose, right? It says, for whom he did foreknew, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren, right? So the Lord already got your course mapped out, right? No matter what's going on, no matter what happened, no, the Most High already got it mapped out and it's gonna go the way he wanted to go, right? So it says, verse 9, thus God have taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. The Most High took his cattle away from him, right? Let's go back to Sirach, chapter 10. It say, God have taken away the cattle and given it to me, right? This is what the Bible say. Sirach 10 and verse 8, it says, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. So you can't expect for anything that you got to last if it's gotten by deceit, right? It say that's how kingdoms are translated from one people to another. Same thing, that's what Laban's sons are saying. Let's go back up to verse 1, it says, and he heard the words of Laban's son saying, Jacob have taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father of our fathers hath he gotten all this glory. The Lord took the glory from Laban and gave it to Jake. Right? Let's keep going. Back down to verse 10. It says, and it came to pass at that time, at the time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring straight, speckled, and gristled. So the Lord showed him this in a dream. Like, that's what's going to come to pass, Jake. Right? Verse 11, it said, and the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, here am I. And he said, lift up now thine eyes and see, all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ring straight, speckled, and gristled. For I have seen all that Laban doeth unto thee. Lord, look at what you do to his people, man. He not gonna forsake his people. Hey, if that person loved the Lord, I would be careful how I treat that person, right? I'd be careful how I treat that person, because the Lord say, you're not gonna touch his prophets and do him no harm, right? Touch not the apple of his eye, and his prophets is the apple of his eye. All right, let's keep going. It say verse 13, it says, I am God, I am the God of Bethel, right? Bethel means house of God. I am the God of the house of God, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vows a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. The Lord say, look, it's time for you to get up out of here. And it might be that way with you, right? You may be somewhere, living somewhere, working a job, and they everything you doing everything you supposed to be doing. And no matter what you do, it just won't get better for you. Hey, the Lord, sometimes he'll make a way for you to get up out of there so that it can get better for you, right? Let's keep going. Verse 14, it says, and Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us and have quite devoured also our money. So his wives like, man, we ain't got nothing to lose by coming with you. It say, for all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours and our children's. Now then, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. So, right, his wives like, hey, we with you, as they should be, right? As a husband, it's your job to lead your family, right? The Lord may tell you or give you a direction for your family to go in. And as a wife, right, it's your job to trust that God-fearing man, that the Most High is dealing with them and that the Most High is gonna lead them. Right? Let's get this real quick. In Psalms. It says in Psalms, yeah. Psalms 37 and verse 23. Right? It say the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. So if that man is a God-fearing man, you see he trying to keep the Lord's law, statutes, and commandments, and the faith in his only begotten son. Hey, listen to that man. It say the steps of a good man. A good man is just a man that's trying to keep what's good. Right? Let's go to Romans while I got it up. Romans chapter 7 and verse 12. Right? What's good? Romans 7 and verse 12, it say, wherefore the law is holy and the commandment holy and just and good. Right? So if that man trying to keep the laws, he trying to be holy, trying to be set apart, the Bible say the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. So why wouldn't you trust him? Right? You may not be able to see what he can see. You might not be able to see the end goal as good and as clearly as he can, but it's your job, sister, to trust that man and follow him. Right? So let's go back to Genesis. So his wife said, they like, look, our dad look at us like we ain't even family no more. He done squandered away all our riches. All right. Let's keep going. They said, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. Verse 17, then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camels and carried away all his cattle and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting which he had gotten in Padanaram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. It says, and Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. Right? So this let us know a lot right here, right? Rachel still kind of dealing with some things. Even though she married, she got a man of the Lord as a husband. She herself still kind of dealing with some things from her upbringing, right? When it says she took the images that were her father's, it's talking not pictures, not baby pictures. It's talking about idols, right? Because Laban worshiped idols. So she grew up watching that. She grew up seeing that, right? So she stole those on her way out the door. Verse 20, it says, and Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, in that he told him not, that he fled. Right? So Jacob kind of tried to creep off from Laban without Laban knowing. Right? Verse 21. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river and set his face toward the Mount Gilead. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled. And he took his brethren with him and pursued after him 7 days' journey. And they overtook him in the Mount Gilead. It says, and God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night and said unto him, take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. So the Most High came to Laban and said, hey, don't watch your mouth when it comes to Jacob. Right? Verse 25, it says, then Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mount of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, what hast thou done? Thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters and captives, taken with the sword. So he like, look, you just took my daughters and my grandchildren without even telling me. Right? Laban mad. Verse 27. Wherefore didst thou flee away secretly and steal away from me, and didst not tell me that I might have sent thee away with mirth and with songs, with tabret and with harp? He like, I could have threw you a party before you left, but you just crept off. Right? Verse 29 says, it is in my power, it is in the power of my hand to do you hurt. But the God of your father spake unto me yesternight, saying, take thou heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. So Laban kind of cautious. He's like, man, your God came to me last night, told me to watch how I talk to you. Right? Verse 30, it says, and now though thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my God? He like, look, I know you saying you gotta go, but why you stole my idols? He like, I ain't got my idols in my house. Where they at? Verse 31, it says, and Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, peradventure, thou wouldest take by force thy daughters from me. With whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let them not live. Before our brethren discern thou what is thine with me, and take it to thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. Right? So you got to understand something here. Jacob had been living around Rachel for 20 years now, right? He served Laban for 20 years. So he spent 20 years around Rachel, but he kind of probably didn't know, he probably didn't really realize that that was something she was struggling with, right? And this provides some insight for us, especially as men, if you're a husband, right? Especially if you're a husband, but even if you're in any type of leadership position, you have to understand the things that the people under you or the people that look to you may deal with, right? You have to understand and pay attention to that. Let's go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 27 and verse 23. Right? It says, be thou diligent, right, to know the state of thy flocks and look well to thy herds, right? So the Bible says we have to be diligent. To be diligent, let's look that up. Let's look up diligent. Right? Diligent, showing steady, earnest, and energetic care and effort. Right? Describe someone who is hardworking, thorough, and painstaking in their tasks, often avoiding idleness or carelessness, right? So when it comes to your flock, or the Lord likens his people to a flock, right? Let's get that in Numbers. He likens his own people to a flock. Numbers chapter 27. And we'll start at verse 1. All right. It says, then came 15, Salaki. Numbers chapter 27 and verse 15. It says, and Moses spake unto the Lord, saying, let the congregation, it says, let the Lord, the God of spirits of all flesh, set a man over the congregation. Right? It says, which may go out before them, and which may go in before them, and which may lead them out, and which may bring them in, that the congregation of the Lord be not as sheep which have no shepherd. Right? So the congregation, people, are likened to a flock or sheep, and they have to have a shepherd. They have to have somebody that tell, hey, it's time to go over here. Let's move over here. It's more food over here. We're going to go over there. It's more resources over here. Hey, it's wolves in this area. Y'all look out. We got to be on head on the swivel. That's kind of what a shepherd does. He look after the flock. He protects the flock, right? So you as a man, you kind of say for your wife or your family being your flock, right? As your family, you have to look, you have to know the state of thy flock. You got to know if your wife may be dealing with certain spirits, right? You got to put her in a position to be successful. It's our job as husbands to do that. All right. If you are a leader over a congregation, it's your job as a leader of that congregation to put that congregation in a position to be successful. Right. Your congregation may have a heavy spirit of bitterness or fornication that hovers over it. It does that congregation no good for you to spend 10 weeks breaking down the book of Daniel. They not gonna get anything out of that for real. They need to get this bitterness and this spirit of fornication off of them, right? So you have to know the state of your flock and look well to thy herds, man. You have to pay attention to the group, right? Let's get this precept in Sirach. Speaking for the sentiment of, yeah, Sirach 33 and 17. Right? For the sentiment of being over a congregation, right? It says, consider that I labor not for myself only, but for all them that seek learning, right? So you may as a teacher, you may like to get into prophecy or whatever the case, that whatever you like to study, but you have to pay attention to the whole group, right? And say, okay, what can we expound on that's gonna take the group to the next level, not just you to the next level, right? It's about the nation and the nation being strong starts with strong families, right? So as a husband, you would want to pay attention to if you got a son or a daughter, right? There's many scriptures in the Bible that tell us how to deal with our children, right? And how to rear them up. But you want to pay attention, right? You may something that don't get talked about, right? You may notice that your daughter got that she kind of deal with a spirit of homosexuality. You might see it early, right? She may be 3, 4 years old, and you may notice it, or in your son, right? Don't ignore it. Or for instance, even more so, if you see that they deal with that spirit, don't put them in a position or an environment that's going to cultivate that spirit. You want to quell that as much and as soon as possible, right? You want to do that as much as and as quick as you possibly can, right? So Jacob in this instance didn't know that his wife had an affinity for idols, right? He gonna say something about it a few chapters later, might be next chapter, right? But he gonna address it later. So let's go back. So he didn't know, we had verse 32, we just read 32 in Genesis. He didn't know that his wife had stolen those idols, right? First thing, if he knew this, that his wife struggled with this, when Laban said, I can't find my idols, he should have been looking at his wife like, I know damn well you ain't take your daddy idols. You know what I'm saying? But he like, hey, nobody got him. Whoever got him with me, they need to die because he has no idea that his wife got these items. Right? Verse 33. It says, and Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the two maid servants' tent. It says, but he found them not. Then went he out of Leah's tent and entered into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the images and put them in the camel's furniture and set upon them. The furniture of the camel is like the little saddle bags or whatever the case, right? It says, and set upon them, and Laban searched all the tent, but found them not. It says, and she said to her father, let it not displease my Lord that I cannot rise up before thee, for the custom of women is upon me. And he searched, but found not the images, right? So what does she mean? The custom of women is upon me. Let's go to the book of Leviticus, right? The custom of women is upon me. Leviticus chapter 15 and verse 19. So this let us know even back then they had the laws of the Most High, right? There was somebody teaching the laws of the Most High, right? Jacob was a teacher. Right, let's read this. Leviticus 15 and verse 19. This is the custom of women. It says, and if a woman have an issue, and her issue in her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days. And whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the evening. So an issue of blood is going to a woman on her flower or her menstrual cycle, right? If she's supposed to be put apart. She's supposed to be put apart, not everybody else. She's supposed to be put apart because she got that going on. And whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the even. It says, and everything that she lieth upon in her separation shall be unclean. So the bed would be unclean. It says, everything also that she sitteth upon shall be unclean. So a chair. So you sisters get on your flower. You don't need to be sitting in every chair in the house, right? You should try your best to keep this law. Have you a designated area that you sit when you on your flower, right? Because everything that you sit on is unclean when you're dealing with that, right? It says, and whosoever toucheth her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the even. And whosoever toucheth anything that she sat upon shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean to the even. So this goes into why she was able to tell her dad, let's go back. She said the custom of women is upon me. Keep in mind, she knows that, hey, I'm sitting on this camel, and if he go in these bags, that'll make him unclean. He have to wash his clothes, he have to take a bath and all that. And he probably don't want to get unclean, so he won't look in this area, right? So that's why she said, it says, and he searched but found not the images, right? So he couldn't find these images nowhere, right? It says, and Jacob was wroth and told with Laban, and Jacob answered and said to Laban, what is my trespass? What is my sin that thou hast so hotly pursued after me? Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff. It said, whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, what hast thou found of all thy household stuff? Set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge betwixt us both. So Jake, like, man, I ain't got nothing. Bring your cause forth, right? Verse 38, it says, these 20 years have I been with thee. Thy ewes and thy she goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy flock have I not eaten. He served Laban 20 years. He like, look, man, you know me. Verse 39, it says, that which was torn of beasts have I brought not unto thee. I bear the loss of it. Of my hand didst thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was in the day, the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eye. He like, look, man, I've been Jacob had a hard life living with Laban. He like, man, I've been out in the sun working all in the daytime. You had me out in the heat. He probably was sleeping outside. He said the frost by night. He said the frost by night and my sleep departed from my eye. I don't know if you ever slept outside, right? If any of y'all ever slept outside and it's cold, especially like during the time of tabernacles. If it's cold, hey, you ain't gonna get much sleep if you cold, man. You sleeping out the door, right? So Jake was dealing with this for 20 years, man. He said, "Thus have I been 20 years in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy two daughters, and 6 for thy cattle. And thou hast changed my wages 10 times, except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me. Surely thou hadst sent me away now." He like, look, man, if it was up to you, I would have left with nothing. It's a God have seen mine affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked thee yesternight. He like, look, the Lord been seeing how wrong you been doing me, right? And Jake say like, I ain't never complain about it, right? The brother did an excellent lesson earlier today, man, about sometimes you gotta hold your peace. It's not always the time to say something. Your job may do you. Hey, I've been going through that, man, at my job, right? They may do you wrong, right? Or mistreat you. Sometimes you gotta just let the Lord fight for you. I ain't saying that you have to be a pushover or nothing in every instance, but sometimes you have to know or have the wisdom to know when it's time to say something and when it's not time to say something, right? So you gotta take heed to that and pay attention to stuff like that, right? So Jake said, "The Lord has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands. He's seen how hard I've been working, and he said he rebuked thee yesternight." And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, "These daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children which they have borne?" It says, "Now therefore come thou, let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee." Right? So they finna make a deal, basically. It says, "And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, Gather stones. And they took stones and made an heap. And they did eat thereupon the heap. And Laban called it Jagar Shahad Dutha, but Jacob called it Galid, a way easier name. I don't know." Laban called it this crazy name. Jacob's called it Galid. All right. It says, "And Laban said, This heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Galid." Galid means witness, I want to say. Let's go into that. Right. So this is an example of what I was talking about and how to study the Bible. If you don't know something or you want to know what a word means, just go into it. Right. So I'm going to pull up the blue letter. What does Jagar Shahad Dutha mean? We're going to go into it. Go on there, click that. So it says witness heap, right? Witness heap. That's what that word, that long word means, witness heap, right? But in the Hebrew, it's called Galid, right? So Jake spoke Hebrew, right? So witness heap, that's what that means. Let's go back. So Genesis 31 and verse 49, it says, "And Mizpah, for he said, The Lord watch between me and thee when we are absent one from another." It says, "If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives beside my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is witness betwixt me and thee." So Laban, he like, look, man, I don't want you to have no other wives but me, but my daughters, right? He say, "Ain't nobody around us, but the Most High see we making this agreement," right? And a father may ask you that. You take his daughter to marry, he as a request, as a part of the covenant that he is giving you his daughter, the circumstances that he's giving you his daughter under, he may ask you to enter into an agreement that you only have his daughter as a wife. And if you agree to that, you got to keep that agreement, right? You can't agree to it and not keep that agreement, right? Verse 52, it says, "This heap be witness and this pillar be witness that I will not pass over this heap to thee, and that thou shalt not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. So they like, look, we ain't gonna go past this point to do nothing to each other, right? And the God of Abraham, and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge betwixt us. And Jacob swear by the fear of his father Isaac, right? So he like, look, I on my dad, I ain't gonna do nothing to you. Verse 54, then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount and called his brethren to eat bread, and they did eat bread and tarried all night in the mount. And early in the morning, Laban rose up and kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned unto his place. Right? So they ended up making an agreement that they weren't going to do no harm to each other. Right? Laban got what he said he wanted. Aside from them idols, he got a chance to see his daughters and his grandkids off. Right? So all praises to the Most High. That was Genesis chapter 31. All right, Most High willing, you got something out of it. It's law school. No, Lord willing, next Tuesday we'll come back for Genesis chapter 32, right? And go into that chapter, and we slowly but surely making our way through this Bible, man, through the book of Genesis, right? So all praises and honor and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shah. It's Brother Nahshon, New Wine Congregation of Israel.